Welcome to the MGMS discussion of elevator pitches. Today we're just going to talk about elevator pitches specifically in terms of the elevator pitch assignment that you have. To begin, we'll just talk about what an elevator pitch is. So the idea of an elevator pitch is to get a great deal of information into a very short period of time about a proposed project. And the nature of this pitch is, imagine you had a chance to talk to someone who had the power and the resources to support you doing your dream project. What would you do and say to them in a very short period of time that would actually make an impact and make them want to talk to you further and consider supporting your idea? I really like this example of a bad elevator pitch. It's from the Hudsucker proxy, in which someone has a chance to talk to an executive but does not effectively convey a message.
This better be good. I'm in a bad mood.
Well, sir, I've got something for you from the mailroom. But first, if I could just take a minute or two of your very valuable time to show you a little something I've been working on for the past 2 or 3 years. You know, for kids. Which is perfect for Hudsucker. Not that I claim to be any great genius. Like they say, inspiration is 99% perspiration, and in my case, it's at least twice that. But I gotta tell you, sir, this sweet baby...
Wait a minute.
Valuable time to show you a little something I've been working on for the past...
So not like that, but maybe more like this. But before we go on to the more like this slide, just think about a lot of the aspects of that last video. He was not very polished or prepared, which of course we all have moments like that, but we can work on that and actually plan for an elevator pitch. And he did something that many people do when presenting a game idea. They assume that other people really get the idea that's in their head. And really, it's very difficult for me to imagine what you have in your head. For instance, think about how would you ever have pitched the idea of Tetris. Certainly if you just had a puzzle game with blocks, that could be a million different things. You'd have to really get into a clear description of what you're meaning. This pitch is better. It's still not perfect, but it is considerably better than the last.
You know, for kids. It has economy, simplicity, low production cost, potential for mass appeal, and all that spells out great profitability. I had the boys down at R&D throw together this little prototype so that our discussion here could have some focus, and to give you gentlemen of the board a first-hand look at just how exciting this gizmo is. It's fun, it's healthy, it's good exercise, the kids will just love it, and we put a little sand inside to make the experience more pleasant. But the great part is we don't have to charge an arm and a leg.
What if you tire before it's done?
Does it have rules? And more than one play?
What makes you think it's a game?
Is it a game?
Will it break?
It better break eventually.
Is there an object?
What if you tire before...
Know when you're finished.
How do you make it stop?
Is that a boy's model?
Can a parent assemble it?
What if you tire before it's done?
Is there a larger model for the Abyss?
What the hell is it?
Well, it's
Brilliant. Genius.
So that was a really good example of some of the aspects that we're going to be looking for in an elevator pitch, and still a non-example for some other things. For your elevator pitch, in this project you're going to communicate in 90 seconds or so, which is about 250 words if you're going to write it out, your project proposal and a rationale supported by market data to elicit someone to buy into your potential idea. So you can decide who you're pitching to, if it's an executive, or for instance if it were an educational game, you maybe would be pitching to someone on the Board of Education where you're located, or if you were presenting a game for something like the American Red Cross, it might be someone who's on their board. So you can think about who you're pitching to and just remember to target your pitch to that person or that kind of population. In your elevator pitch, you should include a statement of the problem. So there should be some problem you're intending to address. This is kind of interesting to think of when you think of gaming, because you may not think of this as solving a problem, but the fact that maybe there isn't a certain kind of game on the market and that there's a certain population, a niche group that doesn't have a game that targets them, that can be the problem. Or maybe the fact that there are games in this area that you're looking at in this genre that maybe don't satisfy the needs of the players or have some problems that you intend to solve. So the next thing is a value proposition. So how many people would want to play this game? If you're going to present a game that only 10 people in the whole world would ever want to play, then there's not much of a value proposition, and you probably should go back to the drawing board. What is your proposed approach? Well, your proposed approach can include things like we've talked about in the class, what platform you would be developing for, maybe what kind of development you would do. Is this a 3D or 2D platformer? And finally, your credibility. Why should the person who's listening to you think that you should be the person to lead a project like this instead of someone else? So is it because you have 20 years in the industry? Is it because you've been a developer for years? Is it because you have a very good understanding of the problem? For instance, if you're developing a game for students with autism and you have a child who has autism, then that would give you credibility. So it doesn't have to necessarily just be your development background. It can be any number of things that gives you credibility. But whatever it is that gives you credibility, you should include that in your pitch as well. So that's a lot to get into 90 seconds, and I say here 30 to 90 seconds, but really for this we're going to say 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Your pitch should still be concise. It should be clear, so don't use words that are fancy just to make yourself sound intelligent or more professional. It should be powerful. You should use words that are expressive and really makes the person engaged with you. If possible, you might want to have a visual, but at very least make sure that you're telling a story or describing this product in a way that someone else can visualize and get an idea of what you're talking about. And if you need to or would want to, you can also use a short story to tell a story about what it would be like if someone were actually playing this game. Or maybe tell a story of the lack of people playing games like this and what this would solve. Your pitch should be targeted for a specific audience. It should be goal-oriented. So what exactly do you want to come out of this? After you've talked to me, the stakeholder, for 30 seconds to 2 minutes, what do you want to happen? And it should have a hook. One thing that the Hudsucker Proxy demo did do was it had a hook because he kept saying, you know, for kids. So what is going to be your phrase or keywords that strike a chord with your listener and maintain their interest, and something that they can repeat later? So a maximum of 2-minute mini speech that's going to serve to motivate your potential funder. Make sure you stay on message. That's one thing that the Hudsucker Proxy example was a non-example of. Make sure you stay on point, and sound bites. If you have anything that can be memorable, make sure you say that. And ideally, if you have something that's a soundbite that you expect people to remember, you would say it somewhere near the beginning and also at least at the end, maybe 3 times throughout. Now we keep talking about having a hook, having a standout. So here are some strategies on how you can hook someone when presenting information. The first one is presenting the problem, the unmet need. We kind of talked about that already. You have some kind of need that's not been met by your current market. What is the possible benefit? So if it's an educational game, is it going to be learning gains? If it's a game for profit, what is the market and the potential for market penetration? Is there an unmet need in a market that has 500,000 users and you're proposing that this app is something that they would want to buy for $6.99 each? That's a possible benefit. Narrative, you may or may not use narrative to engage the user. You have to be interesting, and interested is interesting. So make sure when you're talking about your idea that you at least seem passionate about it. No one wants to buy into something that you don't even care about. And make sure it's relevant to your listener. So think about who your listener is. You would not present the same idea if you were selling something to someone, for instance, who never played a game on a mobile device before, as if you were presenting that same idea to someone who'd been playing mobile games for the last 5 years. So make sure whatever you're saying is relevant to the listener. So ways to get people's attention. You know, present an authentic idea. You be authentic yourself. Your idea should seem like it's irreproducible, as in someone else can just come along and recreate your idea but better. Maybe just the oddness factor. Sometimes that gets people. It's just something that no one has ever seen before. Humor, sometimes being musical, or the humor of the example from the Hudsucker Proxy video where he's actually using the hula hoop as he's pitching. Should be surprising, maybe, or if it's just something that's really impressive, something that no one ever thought could be done, that's also a way to get attention. Making a parody and being timely, so solving a problem that is really important at the moment. Video is Dan Pink talking about the 6 elevator pitch approaches, and it's a very good explanation of 6 different types of pitches, so you don't have to go with the same linear kind of approach. The examples that he uses are the Pixar pitch. He talks about the subject line pitch, a rhyming pitch, a pitch where you ask questions, a one-word pitch, and a Twitter pitch, which maybe we might switch to a Facebook pitch at this point. And you can watch that later. Next, we're going to just talk about motivation. There are many different ways to talk about motivation. They talk about it in marketing and psychology often. And also you'll be talking about it in your game design class. When you're talking about pitching an idea, motivation is a key element. So first you're thinking about, I should say, Monroe's motivated sequence. I really like this sequence because it gives you 5 easy steps to try to hit to make sure you're maintaining or engaging people and motivating them. So the first one is just get their attention. How are you going to get their attention? It can be through some kind of a gimmick or some statement of a problem. Then need. How are you going to let them know that this is something that needs to be done, whatever it is that you're asking for? Satisfaction. So in Monroe's motivated sequence, you're actually suggesting some way to satisfy the need that you address. And visualization. I like this old saying that a good speaker can make someone's ears into eyes. You're going to tell us about your game orally in a way that we can visualize it. And finally, there should be some call to action. And of course, this call to action is going to be different depending on who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to someone who plays games and your call to action is going to be download this game, you should play it. Whereas if you're talking to someone who is a potential funder, your call to action will be something like, you need to invest in this because there's a big potential for revenue here. These are some of the examples of ways that you can engage. I like this acronym to help kind of remember these things. SAME. So the S stands for telling stories or similes. The A stands for analogies, so you would present things and compare them to other things that already exist. M is for more complicated metaphors, and E is for examples. So if you want to present an idea and also give an example. And I want to close with just talking about how we persuade people, just the basic ideas of persuasion. And this goes directly with motivation. Things within us that motivate us are intrinsic motivations, things like pride, religion, love, purpose, and security. You may remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs from some of your psychology classes in the past, maybe in undergrad. If you don't remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can look that up online. It's very simple to find. In Maslow's hierarchy, they talk about our needs for love and belonging and safety and security, connection, those sorts of things. These are all things that you can think of when you're wondering how are you going to make them really think about this later. And I should also highlight that intrinsic motivation is found to be far more long-lasting and effective than extrinsic motivation. So if you have ways of targeting their intrinsic needs, that's going to last a lot more and be far more effective. Finally, the rubric. How will you be evaluated on this project? Your elevator pitch should include you speaking. You can save it in your portfolio, and you can also upload it for submission to me into a Vimeo video. And in this, you need to clearly express your idea, explicitly express what your request is, so basically your call to action. You need to gain the audience attention and address a need, build credibility, have some kind of memorable statement, use an idea that is supported by at least one piece of data. So is it that there's a need for this game because you've done research on the population, or you know about the market and there's not a game like this in the market, or perhaps there's a game like this in the iOS market but not in the Android marketplace. Make sure your pitch is engaging, and then of course maintain professionalism. This is the one that you can have a little bit more fun with, though, because while you have to be professional, you can make it interesting and engaging in ways that you think are not just absolutely over the top. And finally, just remember to view the Dan Pink video on the 6 elevator pitch examples.